Well, hi Priscilla. Thank you for joining us this Saturday and spending the next hour or so with us. I'm really grateful to be talking to you today. I hope you're having a good weekend and I hope you had a good week. But if you didn't, you now have the weekend and so you can reset next week. Um, Thank you for coming on. Before we start, there are a few rapid fire questions that I ask everyone that comes on these calls. And so I'm going to ask you the three of them, and they're going to be really quick. First one is, what is your favorite email sign off?
Um, it's not exactly fun, but something that I learned from a training I went to. It's just really to say thank you, then add your full name, and apparently if you have the thank you, it makes the person want to reply you faster. That's what I was told. So since then, I've just been using thank you, the warm regards, best regards.
Wait, so basically, no more one regards or best. Now I'm like, okay, should we all be changing our sign offs because the data people are telling us that thank you works best. Okay, great. What's your favorite morning beverage? What do you usually have in the morning?
That's hey, I hardly have breakfast, so that would be a bit tricky. But on the days that I do, it's usually coffee with milk, a lot of milk
Okay,
and sugar.
okay. So you like your coffee without the taste of coffee. You want the coffee, but it
Exactly,
must taste like milk. Okay, fair
exactly.
enough. Fair enough. I am a tea person, but I feel like I've said this so much on this call that I shouldn't even share my morning beverage anymore because everyone that has watched it knows. Um, what is your favorite season?
Hmm. I'm in Ghana, so there are only two seasons for me to choose from, and it's obviously going to be the rainy season. And when that
Really?
time comes, the AC is on, the fans are on, my blanket is heavy on my back. I'm just,
What?
that's my
Okay.
favorite. Any day, anytime.
Wow, this is so interesting to me because you're the third person we've had on that has said they like the rainy season. And you know what that tells me? What that tells me is that you all work from home. Because if you were going outside often,
No. How did you know?
if you were leaving your house often, you won't be such a fan of the rainy season with the floods and that just tells
Yeah,
me that all of you work from the comfort of your home office and you're not dealing with the stress of having to walk in floods and puddles. But that's really good to know.
right.
I say this, but I also really like the rainy season back in Ghana because it's a really good time for like hot drinks and cozy conversations. It makes you not want to leave the house and like, where's more fun than your house? Well, thank you very much for answering our rapid fire questions. Now that we've done that, let's go into the proper introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your current role, and how you got into data analytics.
Hmm. Okay. All right. So a bit about myself. My name is Princilla Abena Koranteng. I am Ghanaian and I've lived my entire life in Ghana. Right. And how exactly I get to data analytics? It's a bit of a long story, but simply put together, I had an experience with tech. I had a smartwatch that was really able to help me like figure out my life out much better. I was having health anxiety and stuff, so having the smartwatch helped me to know that I was not crazy, I was fine, I was just being too worried about my health, right? And at that point in time too, I was sort of like out of school doing my national service or NYSC, how you want to call it. I didn't have any idea where I wanted to be. I had studied arts in the university, but the job market for the arts was not really given back in Ghana. And
Exactly that.
I didn't have any skill sets. I tried applying for roles like admin assistant, personal assistant, but they all asking me for skills, and I didn't know what to. I was not prepared for the job market basically. But then, because of that experience with the smartwatch, I wanted to be able to be someone that's able to help people to make decisions using data. like how it helped me, and that's how I got into this space. So started off with self-learning, and then thankfully I got into a boot camp, and then went back to self-learning again. I got my first job, second job, and then I'm talking now. So
That's
that's the question.
really, that's really, really good. That's a really good story. And I like the fact that your origin story, oh my God, you sound like a villain. But your origin story kind of starts from a real life experience that you had and wanting to help other people like you know, in such a situation with numbers and data. That's really interesting. I wish I had a noble story like that for how I got into tech. But thank you for sharing. And I like the fact that you started talking about doing some self-learning and then, you know, getting the first role and then that led to second role. And what's your title now? What is the role that you're currently in?
Yeah. So currently, I'm working as a researcher at Haptel Limited. It's a
Oh,
fintech company, and then there's an AI lab that we currently have. So I work there as a researcher. But then before that role, I was working as a product research assistant.
a
And people
product.
often get confused. Yes, product research assistant,
Product research
right?
assistant. Okay, okay, okay.
So Haptel is, I think of Haptel as a primarily product-based company, right?
Mhm.
And so you're looking for ways to improve the product and then make more money at the end of the day. And so
Yeah,
the product research role was more about researching into how the product can keep bringing you more money and combine that with data to
yeah.
help make decisions.
I see.
That's basically it. And then,
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that with us. And I like the fact that you're in an AI lab, because that's also very topical and very like in line with recent trends and where we're all moving
yeah,
as an economy, as an industry, or as a tech world. But before we get back into your role, let's talk about data analytics as a whole, right? You're in data analytics, you create a lot of content about data analytics and how people can get into it, how it can help the tech world and can help businesses. But what is it, right? What's data analytics? If you could explain it very briefly to our audience who are usually people who are trying to get into the tech world.
yeah. So actually, I was having this conversation with someone over the week, and I've had this go-to explanation to make it as simple as possible to anyone. And so usually for data analytics, I'll have you to think of it as um, being a detective, right? And then being able to look at certain clues and patterns in order to help find who killed who or who stole the money from the boss's cabinet, right? That's the entire concept of it. So when you're going to translate that into business, it's going to look more like you're losing sales. And so what exactly can I look at in the particular data to figure out where I'm losing sales and then close that gap in order to help businesses get more money, basically. That's the simplest way I think I can explain that.
Yes, but what does
Yeah.
that look like in reality? What does your everyday look like? If you're doing
Okay.
data analytics, and I understand what
Yeah.
you mean by understanding what's behind the actions. For instance, if sales are not going well, trying to understand that. But does that mean you're checking the numbers to see since when the drop started? Or does that mean that you're having interviews to understand what's happening? You know, those could be very
Okay.
different things or super broad.
Right. But to be honest, it's a mix of many things, right? Given the particular situation at hand, right?
Yeah.
For instance, I'll use my current role for instance, right? I mentioned earlier on that it's primarily product based. So let's say that you have a particular product you're working on, and then there's a sudden spike in the sales, for instance, and then usually it's all about 10 cities, and then today it has risen to 1,000 cities and has just dropped down again. That's alarming. Somebody come to fraud us. What exactly is happening, right? So in that instance, what I would do as a data analyst is to go and find those patterns, right? So look at my numbers. What exactly happened? Was there a change in the total customers yesterday and today? Or did someone just get some money from the bank and then decide to give us all of that money in the end, right? Certain times it could be that somebody had lots of money that day, so I would have to go and interview you, right, to find out why you did that particular thing. Was it your own authorization or was a mistake from your end? right? So oftentimes it is as and when the situation calls that you make take a particular path or method to have a solution, right? There are very complex ways around it. But the whole basis is that you should be at least be able to ask the right questions. For this, like what I just did, if you're not asking the right questions in the first place, then you don't even know where to look or how to approach the particular upset thing to find a solution to, right? And also to communication. It's one thing to ask the question, and another thing to go and tell stakeholders what the person said from the questions that she asked as well, right? So those two are very key things. Once you always figure that out, then everything else becomes easier along the path.
Right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm not a data analyst, right? So I'm going to say what I understand from what you said. And if that's right, then hopefully that also simplifies it for the lay people who are listening. But it sounds as though data analytics, from where you sit, is investigating business situations and, like, I guess, scenarios to try to understand what's the best way to solve it or make it better using numbers, using the numbers that you have and basically finding more context based on the situation. So
Yeah.
it's usually an investigative piece, but then based on where that investigation leads you might do some qualitative work to provide more context around the specific project. Is that it?
Yeah, but if we say it's only investigative, then we are narrowing the scope down a bit further, right? Because data analytics, it's broader. You have a part for describe. Sometimes you don't have to go do any investigation. You have
Mm-hmm.
to describe to them what has happened in the past, and then you're
Right.
up on your feet. There's only
Okay.
that part as well. Maybe you want
Okay.
to just diagnose something, then just let them know, then we are good to go. Or you want to help them do some predictions in the future. Maybe something that's not happening right now, but then you want them to know how you're going to perform the next 6 months if you change to so and so and so to meet a target, right?
Yeah.
And now to have AI coming into the picture, so
Yeah.
that can also influence your analysis as well. So investigation is just like
One part of it.
descriptive, it's just one part of it, right? But then there's other aspects as well that make. Okay, so in essence, really a huge bubble, right? That's why I narrow it down to just two parts, right?
Right.
If you're able to ask the right questions, able to communicate very clearly,
Mm-hmm.
then essentially you are fulfilling all of these four things, or you're choosing which one to do at the right time.
Right.
So yeah, you're asking the right questions instead of just describing to what happened yesterday, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you're probably using what happened yesterday, but you're using that to affect today and the future. And that could either
Exactly.
be in a way to diagnose like a situation, investigate a situation, describe a situation, or even
Yeah.
provide some kinds of forecast with data as the basis. Okay, that's great. Now I understand it, and I'm hoping that our viewers are also understanding it from that perspective. So you talked about your path into data analytics, which is you started with some self-learning, you joined the boot camp, and then you obviously continued that learning and then got into your first like gateway role, right?
Yeah.
Is this the typical way that people get into data analytics? What does it look like in the typical sense? And what does it look? I mean, we get what it looks like for you, but how do people usually get into it?
Right. So at the time that I was trying to get into data, because of my personal experience, it had struck a chord with me that I didn't think it was impossible. Right. So all I knew was, and I had an edge. I had been learning like how to use Excel in high school, in JHS and SHS. So it was not very new to me to start. So that's what I was using and practicing around. And so once I started knowing, I already had Excel experience once again. So I felt like a boss already, right? So it didn't feel like it was any different. But then
Yeah.
as soon as I began to post on LinkedIn, started to look like, oh, you've done the impossible. And I was shocked. I was like, no, I didn't do anything. All I did differently was believing in myself, and then I was able to do it, right? And it was actually that Excel skill set that I had honed very well. that got me into the bootcamp in the first place. I
Mm.
was rejected earlier because of my Excel skills. I had to now be called back for the bootcamp, right? And so, is this something difficult? Is it something that people are usually doing these days? I'd say yes, because more and more people are talking about it and they're openly sharing their experience to how they're able to do it, right? Because of that, it has lowered the barrier to data analytics, whether you're from healthcare, you're from teaching, you're from arts, so that you have the desire or the passion to get into it. There are no barriers really. That's what I think.
Right, but
Yeah.
you have to be really good at Excel. That in
I do
itself
have to do that Excel.
that in itself could be a way in. But I guess what you're saying is that if it's something that you're interested in, you could get
Yeah,
started regardless of the industry that you're transitioning from. But it
exactly.
helps to have some background in some form of data platform. So it could be Excel, or if you're already out there, you could already be using things like Power BI before you come in. But hopefully, you have the interest, right? And then that could be a starting point.
Well, for me, when I say I knew how to use Excel, I didn't even know about data analysis when I was learning about Excel.
Mhm.
When I say I knew about Excel, what I mean is I knew how to open Excel. I knew what the cells mean. I knew what rows and columns are. I knew where to go and create my charts. But when it came to using Excel for data analysis, it was a different ballgame altogether, right? And because I had the experience with the interface, I was not intimidated, right? Because I've met people who, when they see the Excel spreadsheet with the boxes, they just close the laptop and they're like, I don't want to do Excel again, right? So having that experience with the interface alone, we lowered the barrier in that sense for me, right? And then the learning part, I had no idea. Flow chain sorting, I didn't even know that was that relevant as I started learning. Because the passion
Right.
was there, the desire to learn was still there, and that thing
Yeah,
went
and
well.
that actually brings me to another question around data analytics is clearly a numbers thing, right? And so you need to
Yeah,
be a numbers person or to at
right,
least be interested in numbers to get into
right.
it. And I say this because you had shared already that you studied an art related course like in uni. But not to sugarcoat it, if you're not a numbers person or interested in numbers, data analytics is probably not for you. Is that a
Exactly.
fair assessment?
Yeah, that's
Right.
that's that's true. That's so true. Honestly, throughout my life, I had studied the arts. Like I made sure to stay out from mathematics as much as possible because I didn't feel like my brain was mentally equipped to figure out X and Y's and Z's equations, right? So, but I gotten to a point where I knew that it's really the experience I have with the smartwatch, basically. So days I can't explain why I got myself into this space, knowing that I needed to work with numbers, but that mindset of being able to help people in the future because of data also propelled me, right? And I
Yeah.
was it doesn't mean that because of that desire, automatically the fear of mathematics disappeared. That's not true at all. I had to. I remember during my boot camp, for instance, we had students from all backgrounds who had master's degrees in statistics, petroleum engineering, chemical engineering. I was like, hey, what am I doing here with an art and zero statistical background? Right? But then what helped me to reduce my fear of math? Sometimes it's a little bit scary here and now when I see some equations doing some things like that in my face. But what helps me is for me what helped me was me able to being able to appreciate the impact of mathematics, right? That if you're able to understand the techniques to solve a particular equation, for instance, can possibly be solving a world equation somewhere that Einstein couldn't solve, right? So if you're
Yeah.
able to appreciate the impact of mathematics, right? It can be able to reduce that fear and avoid the barrier of feeling the analytics as well. Because yes, it's true. You will not need you might not need math to get into analytics because of either you see Excel or SQL. But then if you want to be more statistical and then we do more prescriptive and predictive analysis, then you have to use mathematics. And you can't skip that barrier. You have to be able to learn it. And to learn, you have to appreciate it first. And with time, all we do is part of our everyday life. So I have no choice. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. I want people to watch this and not be, I guess, deluded about what it is, right? And so if you really genuinely do want to get into a job role that is fully math inclined, then maybe this is not for you. But if you love the math, if you want to do something with data, if you want to be able to help other people understand their lives and the world around them using data, then this is a role that you will actually find quite helpful. Um, well, that's great. I guess it now brings us to what are some tools that you use in your daily work? You talked about Excel, so everyone that's watching knows that Excel is one of them. But what other things?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So, well, apart from that, I tend to use SQL on a day-to-day basis because we have a database I have to query data from, and so SQL is something I use, and also Power BI to help with visualization and storytelling. Right. These are the three major things that I use at work, really. Right.
so
If I'm
SQL,
working on projects,
BI.
exactly. Yes. I don't know how to use Tableau. I've not even tried yet. Probably because I've not found like people who are looking for the demand from me in my current setting yet, right? And for my current, I'm working on a project currently, and I'm using Python programming to figure that out because it tends to be much easier and faster for me. So in work, I use those three, and then currently in real time, I'm using Python programming as well to figure out one or two things as well.
Okay, so
I've used R programming once, and that was it. I've not used
oh
it
my
again.
God,
And
I had to do some R programming back in my undergrad days, and I will tell you, I was not a fan, which is why I'm not in data analytics right now. But so it seems like there's a bit of programming or coding that goes with
yeah,
being in data analytics. And I know you talked about SQL already, and now you're talking about Python. And so is this something that people need to have a sense of before they can get into analytics as a career path?
yeah. Wait, if I got a question clearly, you're asking if people would have to be using programming tools as part of the
Yes,
day-to-day life as data analyst. Now
yes.
hmm, that's a bit tricky because I'm saying that because I've noticed, and I might be wrong, I can't be correct, but I've noticed that certain industries call for certain kinds of tools to be used for data analysis, right? So if you're working in a space like the banking sector, they have a lot of databases that will not just sit in an Excel file. It's too small for that. So do obviously working with SQL, right? But a small company or a skincare company or a small business make more sense for them to invest in an Excel spreadsheet than a whole database that they're paying money for or the cloud, right?
Yeah.
And so really it's a matter of the industry, right? And the size of the company that also plays a role in kinds of tools that they use. But in today's age, fast rising, we are seeing that it is SQL that is currently in demand, right? Because data is growing every single day. So you need more people to store data, then query is much easier, and then manipulate it by able to manipulate it long term. So SQL is fast growing, and in my opinion, I'll say followed by Excel, and then other tools like um, Python programming, right, can come in the picture. That's how I would rank it in today's age. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. No, and that's good. Good to know that because once programming languages are being used, I don't think we're gonna like we're gonna go back and reverse it. Right.
Yeah.
So it means that more and more will be introduced in there. So it's a good idea to have a sense of some level of programming, whether it's SQL or Python, getting into the space. Because you might start working for a small business that uses Excel only. But it doesn't mean your next job wouldn't be something, so you need to be upskilling as you go on. It doesn't mean from the get-go you should fully all into like programming at the
Yes.
beginning, but it makes sense to consider it as a way to upskill as
Exactly.
you progress in the in the career. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And now I'll ask you maybe your top five skills or competencies that, people look out for when they're hiring for this role? So that if someone is trying to get in, they know what to prioritize.
Yeah. So I would say um, critical thinking, right? It's something that I noticed. It's it's something I cannot teach, right? You can only practice on a day-to-day basis and hopefully, well, not hopefully, once you are practicing you get there, right? But then for data analytics, as I said earlier on, right, there is no particular set steps I can use to answer a particular problem unless you can ask the right questions and then communicate properly, right? And if you're able to do that, you have to be a critical thinker. If you can't think critically about a particular problem, think on pressure, under pressure, without pressure, and foresee certain things, then you're going to be severely short-handed, right? As a data analyst. So that would be my top skill. And then
Yeah.
followed by a tool proficiency, right? Of the current company or preference, right? I say that
Mhm.
because even though well we say that tools are not really something of importance, if you're able to manipulate how to use a tool much easily, it helps to make you more efficient at work, right? So that would be my second thing, followed by communication. I've said that a lot, and I'm adding that again. So communication would be the third thing, and let's see, I'd give problem solving, right, as my fourth, because it's one thing to be a critical thinker, like, okay, you can do so and so and so, and another thing to actually be able to figure out how to solve a problem based on whatever you have thought of, right? So that'll be my fourth thing. And finally, I would say collaboration, right? Because one thing about being data analyst is being able to other people. And oftentimes, I mean, for me, in my experience, most people tend to be introverted and also data analysts as well. Thinking that all you have to do is just work behind your laptop. But it goes beyond that. You have to learn how to work with people, talk to people, figure out how to speak to people. A lot of people stuff coming, even beyond the people to so stakeholders as well, right? And being a very good collaborator also helps to sharpen those skills as well. So those are my top five.
No, I hear
Yeah.
you. Like I know that everybody has their own like department they work in, but I know that if you're a data person, you probably work with so many other departments because everyone is interested in that outcome of that, whether it was an investigation or predictive like
Yeah.
project. You want to know what the data is saying. If you're PM or you're in sales or whatever, you want to know, you know. And so collaborating is one of the big ones. I completely agree. And
Yeah.
and at the beginning, you talked about critical thinking, which is it comes up a lot in these interviews about people need to have because it's not just about being able to read something and say, "Oh, this is good," or "Oh, this I don't really like this." It's about trying to understand why does this seem good for you? Why,
Exactly.
asking why maybe 5 or 6 times to try and unearth the insights there to its clearest minimum, and then be able to make decisions based off of that. Um, that's great. The other thing around tools as well, you're talking about how it'll be really good to have the tools because it helps make your life easier. But also, as someone who is getting into the space, I would even say that it helps make your interviewer or your assessors understand that you've always already started doing some work. And
Yeah.
so even if it's a very junior role, you're not coming in, tabula rasa, like with nothing completely there. And now they need to sort of like build you up, but you have something to work with at the beginning.
Exactly.
So yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that. And I hope that it's helpful to the people back at home. Now let's talk a little bit about AI, right? Like we'll be remiss if we ended this call without talking about AI.
Yeah.
With the advent of AI and how everybody's becoming a little bit skilled at everything because they've got ChatGPT in the corner. How are you yourself, I guess maybe upskilling or honing AI to help yourself? And what should people who are looking to get into data analytics be mindful of or be getting into or be looking at to stay abreast with the times essentially?
Yeah. So, all right. So, AI is a very interesting topic for me. And I'll start off from when it was first introduced, right? And everybody was afraid that, oh my God, AI going to take the job of data analyst and that you have to find different jobs to go and do and stuff. So, in the current age of AI, recently I did something with AI and I was totally mind blown. I created a website for my portfolio as a data analyst. So I realized that I have to go and pay for Wix or other platforms, and then they are very generic, right? So I want to do something for myself. I went to Cloud AI. In seconds, it was done. I have a portfolio up and running. And it suddenly occurred to me that in today's age of analytics and AI combined, right, the sky is no longer the limit. It's going to be your imagination. If you cannot imagine as much as possible what you want to do with your data, then that's where your limit comes at, right? And so, hmm, how I use AI my current day to day is like my personal assistant, right? Gone are the days where I want to Google to go and read Stack Overflow messages and try and figure out stuff, right? I remember one time I had an idea. I'm talking about emergency be your limit, right? I had to do a report at work and then it had to be entered every single day in an Excel spreadsheet. Now I know about automation, but I hadn't done it before using Google Sheets. And so that was a whole new experience for me. Now in the past, what I've done was to Stack Overflow and read through millions of comments to understand what the answer is just to go and do one thing. But I had ChatGPT open in one tab and the screen was just in half. And I was just figuring it before I realized I had spent 5 hours behind my laptop, but I had automated the entire year's work. That would have taken me several hours in a day to figure out, right? So in my job, AI is like my personal assistant. Whatever I need, whatever I need to bring to life, I use ChatGPT or any other AI tool out there to help me out with. And I found myself to be in a position where I am not intimidated by artificial intelligence, right? Because it is it's like a doctor. They are trained to know about diseases. Same way AI is trained to know about every single thing in the world. No matter how good your data analysis and how many years of experience, you cannot match it because it's trained daily on every single thing in the world. So what you can do is just be its ally and then you're good on your way. And so yeah, personal assistant, my best friend, my therapist, every single thing included. And it has gone a long way and I see it's going much bigger ways than that as well.
Well, that's really good. If you're trying to get into data analytics, do not be afraid of AI. Do not hate AI. AI can
And
be
that's
your
the thing.
PA.
Sorry, I'd like to add, right?
Yeah.
Keep in mind that your imagination is a limit. That's one thing I just want you to keep in mind every single time, right? Because it can do literally anything from helping you plan a data analyst roadmap based on your own special unique experiences in life. You can get that done to to learning Excel in a very unique way. Just give it a prompt and figure that out for you. But if you limit yourself to the old ways, then you will be limited. Once again, it's your imagination. As long as you can think it, prompt it down, give it to an AI, and then just see it come back to life. And you'd have that edge that most analysts will not have because they are afraid to get to it. Right? Yeah.
I agree. So if you're thinking about getting into data analytics or actually anything, any role at all, AI, the limit is your imagination because with AI now, you can do so much more with your skill set, with all the lived experiences that you have. It can be a tool to catapult you into the sky, essentially. Because no matter how much the AI will know, right, it still needs the guidance of someone who understands the context of whatever project it is you're trying to run. So yeah,
I mean,
AI is your
there are ethical considerations, privacy issues. So, I mean, you should be aware of that, but still, it's an ally. Right? Yeah.
awesome. I think that's a good place to now talk about basically the business KPIs that data analytics specifically maps onto. So I say this a lot because when you're going into an interview, you want to understand what your work will be measured against. And so it's always good to hear from the people in the field. What are you currently measured against so that when I'm having an interview, I can speak to those metrics and, come off as knowledgeable about the space that I'm in. So in your space, what are some things that you're measured against?
Yeah. So, I don't know if it's going to be different across many industries, but from what I've experienced, I've worked in two different industries: the fintech and then the self-care space. And then there are two main things that keep coming up, right? The growth in terms of money, in terms of usage as well, because we tend to think of these things as causation and correlation. If more people are using the product, then ideally you should have more money coming out of it, right? These are the two main things, and then other things will come up later in the picture, right? And so your product should bring as much money as possible to the company, or should find more innovative ways to make it get more money to bring to the company. And because it's a product, it should have users. So people should be using the product as well to bring that money that you're looking at getting at the end of the quarter or the year, etc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can you draw a line from data analytics to growth and like usage increase? How would you sort of answer that question in an interview setting? You know,
Draw a line.
well, yeah, how does your work influence that essentially?
Okay. Well, I have to be a bit detailed now. Let's see. Okay, I was my past experience, right? I was working with well, okay, yeah, I was working with a skincare company, right? It's made in Ghana skincare product. And I was working as a business analyst, and so at the time I joined the company, we were getting towards the um, December season, right? And because we have products, we're looking at giving promotions out to the customers, right? So one thing I had to do as a business analyst was to figure out which people are the top performing customers in terms of their visits, and then also the amount of money they have spent. Someone can come to a shop 10 times, but they only bought something worth one city. Someone came once but bought something 10 cities. That's really narrow down and look at the comparison of the two and select the best people that if you select the best people that if you take and give a promotion to, you can end up bringing more referrals in the long term, right? So I worked on that, and then we had good news. Everybody was happy, and then I didn't last that long to tell, but ideally from that you're able to see that okay, based on that, because I gave out promotion to my most loyal customers, my best spending customers, then let's give out more referrals to their friends, and then let's increase in the sales and then users as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I want people to be able to see that, like, yes, you might be sitting in your little corner doing like crunching away at the numbers, but there's a direct influence on what the final revenue numbers are, right? Because as a business, we're all trying to get revenue growth and increase in adoption, every kind of business. But sales can say, I bring the money in. And you need to still show how is your work directly affecting the money that's coming in, even if you're not speaking to customers on a daily basis. So that's really a really good way for people to answer that question if it comes up in an interview. And now to our final question of the day is, what is a book recommendation, a podcast recommendation? What are some people on LinkedIn that will be really good to follow and learn from? What are some courses? Essentially, what resources would you like to share with our viewers?
yeah. Okay, so when I used this from my personal experience, right? When I got into data, I had focused so much on asking the right questions that once I did all of that work, I didn't know how to communicate or to tell you that okay, based off I was not giving like a story time. I went to ask A, C, and then C said this and C said that. So it didn't feel like I was giving a report. It felt like I was giving a minute of what I did about my entire analyst journey. And that's really broke off the entire essence of communication to stakeholders, right? And so one particular book and YouTube channel that I'll keep talking about wherever I go to is storytelling with data, right? That's really transformed how, because the fact that you went to ask them people question doesn't mean that stakeholders should know the details of the question with asking 10 people, right? It should mean that you want to communicate that very clearly for them to understand. So the book is by Cole. I don't want to spoil the name, but I start with N. It's a very long name. But it's by Co. Is a female. Storytelling with data. And there's like an amazing YouTube channel that has lots of details about how you can analysis from beginning to end. This storytelling with data approaches, right? So those ones have been very key, and once again, recommend to every single person that wants to improve their communication on the analyst side. Yeah.
No, that's perfect. And of course, we'll be in touch as well to see if you have any more like communities or anything that you can share with us via email. And we'll add it to the description box on the YouTube video so people can have access to it. But that's great. That brings us to the end of our interview. But before you go, what is your final word to our community members who are trying to get into data analytics?
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to congratulate you for wanting to get into this space and even watching this video to encourage yourself to get to this space because people try to get to this step. And what I would like to tell you is that you shouldn't give up, right? Because one of the things, particularly when trying to teach yourself about data analytics, is to feel like you're alone or you are lost and have anyone to go to. But to combat that, what you can do is you have Jess here, right? Reach out to her or do your possible best to find data communities or people. There's a misconception that LinkedIn is like a very professional space. You can go there and talk to people, but they are one of the most nicest people I've ever met in my life, right? So if you're having a shot, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, and try and join community as much as possible to keep yourself engaged, right? Just like trying to know somebody. If you don't get closer, you don't know about the person. So what data analytics, if you want to get to know and better in the space, you have to join communities, listen to more podcasts like this. You have to get yourself involved, right? And then with time, you get comfortable and confident in the space. So you're doing well. You're doing well.
No, that's really great. And we will also put Priscilla's details in the description. So please go follow her, connect with her on LinkedIn, reach out if you have questions, and she'll be really excited to help and try to get more people who look like us into the data analytics space. Thank you so much for watching us at home and see you on the next one.